Hi Sumit, welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time seeing my YouTube channel or my video, thank you so much for stopping by. To my returning subscribers, thank you so much for your love and support so far. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you guys how I cut out the pattern of this bag, how I stitched this from beginning to the end. This is a detailed tutorial. If this is what you're interested in, please stay tuned, watch to the end, and don't just watch to the end. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I really need subscribers, and your comments, it will really go a long way for me. So without much ado, let's get right started into the video. I use this colorful taffeta fabric for this project, and I also use this shiny insulator foam for the stiffener of the bag. I also use my zip here, that is my zip cloth, and also the bag handle. And then I'll go ahead and give you the measurements of these templates. The front and the back template measures 10.7 inches length and 9.6 inches across as the width. So I cut out two pieces of it. If you notice at the top part of this template, I cut out this piece, but I'll be showing you guys how I did that. So from this part, I went inward by 2.5 inches. I marked the point, came downward by 3 inches as shown. I used my pencil to make a curve to connect the points. I went ahead to cut it out by folding it into two before cutting out, so the curve can be equal on both sides. For the other back template, I placed it together into two, so I cut out the other part of the circle as shown. I now have my front and back panel ready. I have these two square rings as well, and I also have this cartoon character that I'll be using for the design of the bag. I went ahead to cut out lining for the front and the back piece. I cut it in a square so I'll have enough excess to top stitch and trim out the excess later. To get the measurement for the top gusset of the bag, I came down by 6 inches, made a point. I also marked the same point on the other side. So I went ahead to measure what I have from that point to the other side where the top gusset stop as shown. And what I had was 18.5. So this is the top gusset, the two pieces of the top gusset I cut out using that measurement. Like I said, what I have is 18.5. I went ahead to add extra 1.5 inches for stitching allowance by the sides. So I cut out two pieces of this, and the width of this is 2.7 inches. For the down parts of the bag, or the down gussets, from where the point stopped, I measured all the way to the other side to have the measurement, and I measured it round as shown, and what I had was 19.5. To get the width of the down gusset of the bag, I placed the top piece together, and whatsoever I have as the measurement, that's the measurement I used as the width, and I also used the length to cut it out. I also cut out lining pieces for the top part of the bag, or the top gusset of the bag. I also cut out lining for the down part as well. I cut out these two pieces for the handle pad of the bag, and the handle is going to be across the belt. So this is what I'm talking about, and the measurements I used for this is 5.2 inches by 5 inches, and I went ahead to cut out two pieces of this. I went ahead to place this template on my insulator foam and I cut it out, but I reduced the foam by 3/4 of an inch on all the sides so I can have space as my stitching allowance. I cut out two pieces of this. So the whole trick here is just to place the template on the lining top, stitch and insert the foam inside. But before I'll do that, I'm going to take my cartoon character and place it on one of the templates and stitch it, which I'll be showing you later on my sewing machine. So I also went ahead to cut out the insulator foam for the top and the down gusset, which I reduced by ½ inch on both sides. So that's what I did right here. Another thing I would love to talk about, I would have normally used or placed this template on my shiny insulator foam directly and top stitched all round, but I didn't do that because I noticed that this shiny insulator foam was peeling away, and I wouldn't want my customers complaining that the insulator foam is peeling away. That was why I did that. So I had to cut out the lining to insert it to be inside. So I'll go ahead and stitch this. Like I said earlier, the first step to stitch this bag is to attach the cartoon character to the front template of the bag, and I used my pins to pin this down to the front template so it wouldn't move when I'm stitching, because this can be slippery a lot. So I tried to centralize the cartoon character so it could be equal on both sides of the front template. So I went ahead to fold the edge of this cartoon character inward by 1/4 inch. Then I went ahead to stitch it all the way down as shown. When I was done stitching the other side, I went ahead to repeat the same process at the other side as well. I folded it in by 1/4 inch and stitched it down. So I went ahead to stitch on the other side. I'll go ahead and top stitch at the down part and the upper part of it as well. I cut out the webbing handle of the bag and it measures 12.5 inches. I cut out two pieces or two of it. You can see as I've measured it here, and the width is 1.5 inches. Like I mentioned earlier, this piece measures 5 inches by 5.2 that I'm going to be using to cover the handle. And then I folded my webbing strap into two to get the midpoint. I marked it and did the same thing for the other handle as well. On this piece, from the side that measures 5.2 inches, that is the side that I'm going to fold inward by ½ inch, as so. I went ahead to stitch it all the way to the other side, and I repeated the same process for the other side as well. Like I said, the side that measures 5.2, I went ahead to stitch it as shown. After making the stitch on one side, I folded it inward on the other side as well by ½ inch and I stitched it. I did the same thing for all the two handle pieces that I cut out. After stitching this, I folded one of the piece into two like so. I tried to get the middle crease line and then I marked out the middle line with my chalk. I folded it on the other end as well to get the middle crease line and then I marked it. So I took my webbing belt, my handle, and matched the midpoint as shown. Well, first of all, I folded the top part by ½ inch so the other topper part will be equal with the width of the belt itself. So when I made sure it was equal, I went ahead to stitch this on the sides as shown. And then I also went ahead to stitch that on the other side as well. So at the end of the day, when I folded it at the top part, it was the same measurement with the belt itself and it covered the belt at the top. And this is what it looks like. The whole folding covered the belt at the width area. So I went ahead to also top stitch at this part as shown to hold it down. After top stitching on the belt, I went ahead to cut out the excess on the other parts of the belt. And this is what I have for one of the handle. I went ahead to repeat the same process for the other side. Just get your midpoint, align and stitch. What I normally do before stitching the handle to the template of the bag, I burn it at the edges so it doesn't fray. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and place the handle at the top part of the front part to stitch it. So to know where to place it, if you look at the sharp curve, that is where I'm going to place the handle and stitch it down. After stitching the other side, when you're about to stitch the other side, make sure you're placing this in such a way the rope or the handle isn't going to twist after you're done stitching it. So just check it before you stitch it. This is what I'm talking about. And this is what we have for the front panel of the bag. I went ahead to repeat the same process on the back part of the bag. I went ahead to place my handle at the sharp edge of the curve. I went ahead to stitch it down. So I was done stitching the two handles on the front panel and the back panel of the bag. Taking one of the lining piece, I placed the front panel on top of it. So it is now time for me to top stitch it on the lining. But before I insert the foam, I'll go ahead and stitch it all around, leaving the down or the upper part open. So I can finally insert the foam into it as shown. After top stitching, I went ahead to cut out the excess lining on the sides. So this is the essence of cutting out your lining on excess, because even if you have excess, you're going to trim it out. So I'll go ahead and repeat the same process on the back panel as well. I'll just place it on top of the lining, top stitch, leave a space up and insert the foam inside and close the opening. I also top stitched my back panel on the lining and inserted my foam inward and trimmed out the excesses as well. To work on the top part of the bag, I cut out this shiny insulator foam, which is not exactly as the measurements of the template. I cut away half inch or 3/4 of an inch away from on both sides because I want to have enough allowance to stitch this. So I placed the template on the lining. I went ahead to top stitch this template to the lining on both sides. So this is the main or good reason why I cut out excess lining on each of my templates. I do this because I don't want my lining to be insufficient when I'm working with it. So it's best to have excess, so at the end of the day you're going to trim it off. So when I was done stitching the both sides, I went ahead to insert the foam into it as shown. Remember that I cut away 1.5 inches at the length of the insulator foam so I can be able to stitch um the allowance at the ends properly. So I went ahead to cut out the excess lining on the sides of the top gusset as shown. I repeated the same process for the other second piece of the top gusset. Taking my zip cloth, I placed it on the top panel, right sides facing each other as shown. So I went ahead to stitch it, but I went ahead to leave out like 1 inch allowance at the top so I can be able to fix my zipper head easily. So I went ahead to stitch it all the way to the end of the top gusset as shown. I went ahead to push the allowance towards the gusset parts as shown. Then I went ahead to top stitch. Please, when you're stitching this, when you're top stitching, make sure that allowance is facing towards the top gusset so it won't get in the way when your zipper head rolls through it. So after doing that, I went ahead to cut out excess at the ends as shown. The next step that I did here was take the second piece of the top gusset, place it on the other side of the zipper as shown. I'll go ahead and stitch this off camera. So when I'm done stitching it to hold it down, I'll flip it to the other side and top stitch as I did earlier. And this is the outcome of stitching the second part of the top gusset. So the width of this top gusset with the zipper determines the width of the down gusset, which is I'm going to take the top gusset, place it on the down one, and I have excess there. I'll go ahead and trim it out. I went ahead to cut out the excess that I had by the sides on the down gusset. So placing the top and the down gusset on the width side, it aligns. So I also went ahead to cut out the insulator foam by reducing the measurements on both sides by half of an inch so I can have space as my stitching allowance on both sides. I placed the down part of the gusset on top of the lining. I'll go ahead and top stitch on both sides so I can insert my foam at the open ends as shown. After top stitching on both sides of the down gusset, I went ahead to insert my insulator foam from the open ends as shown. When I was done inserting it, I went ahead to close the ends and trim out the lining. I'm done trimming out the excesses for the down gusset after inserting the foam, and this is what I have. I also went ahead to stitch close the ends as shown. I folded the top gusset into two as shown. I notched the midpoint on both sides as shown. I also folded the front piece of the bag, notched the midpoint at the top and the bottom as shown. Then I went ahead to place the midpoints matching each other on it, and I went ahead to stitch it down. But before I did that, I went ahead to notch the curved edges so it could be easier, make it easier for me when I'm stitching it down. So guys, when I was trying to stitch this, the foam was trying to get into the way of my allowance. So if you're doing yours, use your pins to hold the foam, push it towards the zipper area so it won't get into your way when you're stitching it down. So I went ahead to stitch it all around to the point where the top gusset stop. So where that point is, you're going to make a tight stitch there, and then that's the allowance that I'm going to be left with to join the down pass. I'll repeat the same process for the other side as well. I went ahead to stitch the other side of the top part to where the top gusset is going to stop at the other side, and you can see the allowance that I have left. So I went ahead to fold the down part of the gusset into two. I went ahead to notch it on the up and the down parts. Then I'll go ahead and align it midpoint matching each other. On the front piece, I'll go ahead and stitch it from the midpoint to meet to where that top gusset stop as shown. I went ahead to stitch the down part of the gusset from the midpoint on both sides to where the top gusset meets. So I lost the clip while I was doing this. It's nothing special. Just stitch it from the midpoint to the other side and from the midpoint to the other side as well. At the points where the top part and the up part meet, I'll place them together as shown. Using my pins, I went ahead to pin this together so this would make it easier for me to work with when I'm stitching it down, because stitching the top and the gussets by the sides can be quite challenging. So I went ahead to pin it down to hold it down at first. After pinning it down, from where that stitch stop, that is where the top and the down part meets, I measured the remaining allowance there, and what I had there was 1 inches. So I went ahead to mark the 1 inches across as shown. So this would give me a guide on how to stitch it. I'll go ahead to stitch it down on that allowance I marked as shown earlier. But before I continue, I went ahead to cut out this webbing strap which measures 4 inches long. So I inserted it into my square ring as shown. Then I went ahead to stitch it down so I can hold it firmly in place as shown. I did the same thing for the second square ring as well. So at this point, I went ahead to insert this webbing with the square ring in between the zipper part, that's the midpoint of it as shown. Just make sure you centralize it. Then when you're done centralizing it and it's okay or firmly in place, I went ahead to stitch it down on that allowance. I joined the top and the bottom piece by the sides and the square ring in between them as shown. Then I went ahead to cut out excess from this part. So I also went ahead to top stitch the sides. So I push the allowance downward towards the down part of the gusset. I went ahead to top stitches as shown. Top stitching the sides makes it more relaxed and it makes it easier for you when you're joining the back piece to the front piece. So this is what I have. This is what it's going to look like. I'll go ahead and repeat the same process that I did on the other side to this side. I'll just insert my square ring in between the middle as shown and stitch it down by the allowance by the side. I joined the top and the bottom gusset at the other side as well, inserting the square ring on the side. So this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back panel. I got the midpoint, I notched it. So I'll align the midpoint of the back part of the bag and the midpoint of the down gusset and the midpoint of the up gusset at the top. I'll stitch it down on the midpoint to hold it down as shown. So when I'm done stitching it at the top part, I'll go ahead and join the other parts at that's the bottom parts at the midpoint as well, and then I'll continue sewing all around as shown. So guys, the last process of stitching this is very quite challenging because you're trying to put everything in place, you're trying to align it. So I had to take my time very well while doing this so everything could align properly. So just be patient with this and you're going to get it right. At this point, I was done stitching the bag all together. So if you have your piping bias, you can go ahead and pipe these edges, but I ran short of bias to pipe it. So instead I used my matches to bond the rough edges. So I went ahead to open the bag and flip it inside out as shown. And we're done stitching this bag, and when I turn it inside out, this is what I have. This bag is so beautiful and perfect. I cut out the length of the long handle of the bag and this measures 51 inches long. Taking one end of my rope, I inserted it from the square ring from under. I brought it upward and then I folded it. I used my pin to hold it down because I'm going to be stitching it down on my sewing machine. So I pinned it down. Right here is an adjuster, so taking the other end of the rope, I inserted it into the adjuster as shown, and then I elongated the rope. Then I inserted the rope from the other end under the square ring as shown. Just watch what I'm doing. And then I dragged the rope. Make sure you align the rope so it doesn't twist. So from under the adjuster, I inserted it again to this other side as well. After dragging it to the side as I'm illustrating, I folded the rope downward and then I folded it again. I'll go ahead and stitch it down. You can see that I went ahead to stitch it down at this point. And I also went ahead to stitch it down at this point on the second rope that I drew out from the under the adjuster. And at last, this is the outcome of our bag. This lunch bag is very nice, and it's good for you to try it out for your kids. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Please don't just watch and leave. Like, share, comment and subscribe. The reason why I didn't use lining for this other pink lunch bag was because I thought the insulator foam wasn't going to peel. That was why I stitched the taffeta fabric directly to the insulator foam. But when I discovered that it was peeling, I had to use lining for the other one that we made in this video. So if you have the one that doesn't peel, please make do of it. So guys, please, I'm begging, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like, share and subscribe. Bye.